Okay, everybody, I think we are back in business. So fingers crossed. Let's hope the gods of internet are working. Let's see if I've got Eric over there. Yes, we do. Hey, Eric.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah, it's working now. So fantastic. That's good. So
I was
that's
coming to terms with being a Skype logo, so
yeah.
I'm not much sure about going to all the effort with lighting a candle in the background and stuff.
Yeah. So that's super weird. So I apologise to you and thanks everyone's patience for waiting. So I don't have an explanation for that. But anyway, so we've got this going on. So just pull up Capture One on screen, Eric, and then we just make sure that or the first stage. Let me just make sure that's working. Yeah, we can see Capture One as well, and we should be all good to go, I think. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Good stuff.
It's all part of the
Okay.
excitement of being live, isn't it? It's kind of
Exactly.
it shows the viewers that please tune in for the car crash that is live.
Yeah. Well, it's still bleeding edge technology and all that kind of stuff. So there we go.
Yes.
All right. So first of all, let's get back on track. For those of you that don't know who you are and what you do, so as I said, you're Eric Ronald, Capture One ambassador, and also wedding photographer, amongst other things. So if you want to give us the 30-second bio, that would be great.
Sure. Yes, so I am indeed Eric, last I checked, and I am a wedding photographer. I've been doing it for about 10 years. Prior to that, I had a little career in kind of filmmaking and television production and things like that.
Okay.
And I've just absolutely loved it and still do. And it's really given me a lot on a personal level, but also just the beauty of being a one-man band creatively, and it's taken me to some interesting places, which has been a lot of fun. Something that's especially hard to imagine since COVID, where I think a lot of us around the world have been cooped up at home, or at least in our own countries, for a long time. So it's kind of surreal now. But yeah, that's me. I love what I do, and I really it gives me a sense of importance and purpose. Wedding photography, sometimes it can be considered the bottom end of photography. I like to think otherwise. I think it's a very important day, and it's not just about a kiss and an exchanging of a ring. It's a snapshot into people's lives, so it really goes much beyond weddings. So I'm a big believer in that. I think it's important now more than ever.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point about wedding photography somehow often being perceived at the bottom of the pile, which I've wrangled with, because having shot like 2 weddings in my entire lifetime, fallen into that trap of friends getting married and, oh, you're a photographer, will you take some pictures? And think, yeah, how hard can it be? And obviously never wanting to do it ever again.
Yeah.
Because of, if you thrive on stress, I think that's great. If you don't thrive on stress, then yeah, it's a whole different experience shooting a once in a lifetime thing, which you don't want to get wrong. So
That's
happy.
right. It
I'm
takes
happy
a certain
to hand that over to people like yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it takes a certain breed, that's for sure. And even just in terms of, you've kind of got to have these two universes of interacting with people, intuition, emotional intelligence, and also be a bit of a geek, and really know your gear and the technical aspects of photography back to front to make quick decisions, adapt to any situation that might be thrown at you. So you kind of have to be these two very different people at the same time.
Yeah.
And yeah, enjoy that pressure as well, which I do. I get a bit of a buzz on. So yeah.
Good. Right. Well, today's all about your workflow. Not only in Capture One, but you're actually mingling a few other apps in, which I'm really upset about, of course. But
Yes.
but no. In all seriousness, you use Capture One for a reason, of course. And we have to be respectful of other people's workflows, and as long as Capture One can play nice in that arrangement, then that's good for me as well. But you've definitely got, having a little preview yesterday of how you go through things, it's definitely got a load of plus points, and it's really interesting, of course, to see how different people work. So shall we start at the beginning? So I think the goal today was to, almost simulate what you would do once you're back from a wedding, I guess, going from the start all the way through to delivery, if you like.
Yes, and I guess to kind of a little bit of a intro and disclaimer as well is that I guess being a wedding photographer, you have a very specific set of demands on your workflow,
Yep.
And one of the things is that we shoot a ton of images. Every wedding photographer is, of course, going to be different, but maybe on a regular day, I might shoot around 5 to 7,000 images.
Right.
So there's your first issue of having the most efficient and effective culling process you possibly can.
Yep.
So I tend to look at, as much as I love Capture One, I want to look at what's the best piece of software to make that process as streamlined as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I kind of jump around a bit in terms of different software, just to kind of use the piece of software that is dedicated to that job.
Got it.
And then in terms of editing, also, I guess, and one of the reasons that I use Capture One is the same reason. Once I've done that cull, I still might have 1,000 images in my catalog. So I need to be able to edit a bunch of images efficiently and effectively. And, I discovered quite a long time ago now that Capture One was the best way for me to do that. And I guess the disclaimer part is this workflow is something that I've kind of come up with over a number of years, and it's indeed quirky. You didn't roll your eyes when I gave you a demo yesterday. But
no, I didn't. No.
It's unusual, but there's method to the madness. And for any wedding photographers, specifically that have tuned in now or watching this down the track, even if you don't adopt this to a T, I'm sure there'll be some things for you to cherry pick and things to gain and just think about. So this isn't to say this is the right thing for everyone, but
sure.
Yeah, so let's jump into it then, hey. Okay. So I guess I'll jump across to step one.
Okay.
I won't bore people with importing images right now. So I've already got
we're going to start by importing 7,000 pictures. Yeah.
Yes, and this includes the hour. Now that these images. So I've got here an example of a client folder. So I have my little OCD naming conventions, and I've got a template folder where I can just copy and paste these empty folders into each client folder and numbered them so it's kind of in workflow order. These little things make all the difference, even having that blank template folder, just to be able to copy, paste, rename, and you're good to go. I find really handy. The first port of call is the raw rejects folder, and the reason for that is that's where I'm going to import all of my images. Why it's called rejects will make sense shortly. So I would import all the images. I happen to use Photo Mechanic to import. I just feel like it's got a very, I feel very confident. Probably stuck in a bit of habit there, but I have a lot of confidence of when I see those progress bars and backups and things like that. It's good peace of mind there, so I tend to use that. But of course, there's many ways to skin a cat, especially importing images. So they'd end up in this rejects folder. Then I would go across to a great little piece of software called Narrative Select. Now, for wedding photographers, a lot of people would be probably familiar with Photo Mechanic. It's pretty common to be doing the cull in Photo Mechanic.
Very much.
If you're familiar with Photo Mechanic, this piece of software by Narrative called Narrative Select is very similar. There is zero learning curve. You are just right at home as if you're using Photo Mechanic, but there's a big but, which is AI technology. So I've already imported this selection of images that I put in my rejects folder. There is a small kind of background rendering that it occurs, and other, like Photo Mechanic, for example, doesn't need to do that. But the advantage of letting it do that is that we start to get some AI analysis of our images. So when I scroll
sorry,
through,
Eric, one question to just to interrupt. Is this cloud-based or it's a standalone app on your machine? But it's just you're just pointing it to that folder that you showed us earlier. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so you can see up the top, I've just gone a new project. It's it's very much an app, no kind of cloud stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just open this folder and it would be its own little kind of project, if you like. So again, very similar to Photo Mechanic. So one of the things that it does, and I guess just to kind of show off one of the several really great features is this AI analysis. So let me do a example. Let's look at some of these. So if I go on here, we've got a yellow exclamation mark. And if I hover over the face and put on the dialogue, the tool, activating the tool, it's letting us know that eyes are partially open. Now she's looking down, so that's worth noting. It can only be so smart. But we're getting eyes as an indicator and we're getting focus. So this one's yellow. Let's try and find one that's red.
And that's just that little kind of warning symbol in the bottom of the shot, isn't it?
Yes, so you can see it in grid view.
There's one far left or there.
Yes.
Yep.
Let's have a look here and see what it's telling us. Again, well, I probably should have imported some soft shots because I certainly do, being a DSLR shooter. But yeah, again, that's picking up the eyes looking down or partially closed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to show a slightly better example, but I might not have some out of focus.
You're just too good with the focusing side of things.
What's the beauty of doing a pre-cull before the cull?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see what this is looking at here. Yes, here we go. We've finally got an out of focus indicator here. And we can see when I punch in that, yes, it is indeed a little soft.
Right.
Maybe not cull worthy, but it will, I guess anyway, so you get the idea. It's going to look at focus. It's going to look at how open the eyes are.
Mm-hmm.
They've just recently trained
there's that AI. One. There's that one there as well, just to the left with his eyes closed too, isn't it? I assume that's what it's picking up. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and it's really spot on with that kind of detection. It's just been trained only a matter of weeks ago to detect kissing, where the eyes would be closed, but if they're kissing, then it won't put it to the bottom of the pile.
Right.
Importantly, it will never, all it's ever doing is flagging images. It's never deleting them. They're never gone.
Right.
It's just saying, hey, these ones you should check out. But importantly, it detects a sequence of images. Here, for example, we've got the groom's reaction. It knows, and I can kind of demonstrate that. You can see here there's a gap to indicate that this is a sequence of the same shot, and you'll see it breaks at the end here as well.
Right.
By it knowing that, it means that it will never, ever, ever reject the only image of its kind. Whereas this sequence, it'll go, hey, all this sequence considered, I'd be getting rid of these two. And then you can review why. So what it allows you to do as a whole is you can go up here, and much like how you can sort stars and colors and things like that, you can just automatically deselect any of those exclamation marks. So you're just not looking at them.
Right.
Then, in doing that, you can see in this example of having, 200 and close to 300 images, it's kind of got rid of, or it's where I've hidden 75 of them.
Right.
But if you apply that to thousands of images, all of a sudden you could be eliminating, like out of 7,000 images, it might get rid of 1,000. And when I say get rid of, flag, which you can then hide. So you can kind of put those images on the back burner, and I've used it long enough to know that you still need to, you want to make sure that you're not missing any shots. So you need to go through and review them. But what I tend to do is hide those initially, do my cull, and then at the end, just go through and review those while it's fresh in my mind, what images I've kept in, and just make sure that I haven't missed any goodies. Because yes, as we can see, we could, for artistic reasons, have one or both the subjects have their eyes open or looking down, which might be partially closed, which of course could be done intentionally. But it's going, hey, you should be aware, it's flagging it. So what I'll do is we want to kind of mimic a short selection of images, pretending that it's a full selection. I tend to try and, with the amount of shots that I get, I'd end up having a cull of close to 1,000 images. So when I'm in Capture One, at that point, I might get rid of a few extras. But I'll just kind of try and quickly go through, and maybe if there's any questions as I'm doing this, or we can try and multitask, even though that's not my strong
definitely. Yeah, there was a question from Gregory actually. He said, "Can you, the photographer, share a selection from Narrative Select with the clients via the app?" And I guess in like a cloud-based workflow, or is it more just centered around the photographer's workflow?
It's certainly possible, but ultimately its purpose is not that. Its purpose is to, it is a dedicated piece of culling software. I know with Photo Mechanic, yes, there is a lot. It's more kind of made for journalists originally.
It is, yeah.
Photojournalists.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of functionality in terms of sending JPEGs to the cloud very quickly and that kind of thing. So that's not what this particular software is for. What this is good at is putting in thousands of raw files, and it'll do face recognition. It'll do this kind of AI smarts, as well as being incredibly quick to use. So yeah.
Good. Keep going. Yeah, I will. For political reasons, get the Capture One plug in here as well.
Please do.
That in the last or very recent update of Capture One, we rebuilt the importer to give fast previewing. So if you're like perhaps doing a smaller job where you don't have 7,000 images or whatever, then the actual importer in Capture One will preview the contents of your memory card as fast as Photo Mechanic, if not faster, actually. So if you want to whiz through a memory card and then pick and choose directly from the memory card in Capture One's importer, you can also do that as well. So Rob says, awesome, a live stream I can actually watch in real time from New Zealand. So nice to have you, Rob. We don't get many New Zealand participants, actually, so it's good to see one. Let's see, I'm just checking for other questions just in case. Nope, I think we're good for the moment. So I assume you're just using shortcut keys to tag the pictures or flag the pictures with star rating and so on.
Yes, so I just tend to just do 1 star out of habit. I don't tend to do different numbers of stars depending on how much I love them. It's more of a yes or no kind of situation. With narrative, you go left and right to go between images, or like I mentioned earlier, how it's detecting sequences, you can up or down. So like, for example, if I select this image, then I hit down, no, it doesn't. Sorry, other way around. Up and down and left and right. So if you go, if you hit the right key, then it'll take you to the next sequence.
Got it.
So I can go up and down here to go between these guys, and then I can hit my right key. I keep getting it asked about. Anyway, you get the point. We can see here these indicators, which you can turn off now that we've kind of we're not looking at the AI analysis of our images at the moment. I can just use that shortcut, which is this icon here, which is just turning off that if it's a bit of a distraction. I don't have any family portraits to show this feature, but let me just show it quickly. Let's say we are looking at a family portrait. There's this tab here, and it's called the close-ups panel. Now, this will we've only got one subject in this particular shot, but if we had a family portrait, we would see a grid close up of every single person's face.
Okay.
Now, when you're culling family portraits, the thing that we are constantly cursing is the blinkers.
Right.
So we can very quickly do that cull by just looking at a panel of ensuring everyone's eyes are open and pick the loveliest smiles and all that kind of thing.
Smart.
So that panel is really great specifically for that. I tend to not use it so much for other stuff because I can already kind of know what's in focus and things like that. But particularly good for family portraits.
Nice.
Maybe hurry this process along a bit more here.
David, I just saw one of the comments said, Capture One should copy photo mechanics. Haha. Well, David, as I said in the last update, the import previewing is super speedy, so you should give it a try as well. Is all I can recommend, and that's previewing directly off your memory card. So if you don't want to import everything, and you want to just quickly whiz through and tag pictures, either import or not import, then you can do that as well. And Yoshihiro Kaneda was asking, what is the software? It's Narrative Select. So based in New Zealand, we thought as well. So
I think we should get a job with them, David. I think we're plugging them quite nicely right now, aren't we?
Oh, and Doug also says, hi, I'm a regular from New Zealand. So that's good. So we do have a few Kiwis on the chat as well, which is good.
Beautiful. All right, we kind of jumped ahead to the portrait section here.
Okay.
Getting through this.
There was a question earlier from Byron, actually, while you're doing that. How long does it typically take you to push out a wedding start to finish? That's the big question.
I tend to space it out over 2 days.
Right.
If I needed to do it in one, I could.
Right.
I'm pretty particular. I do spend quite a lot of time giving these images kind of the love that they deserve. Mm-hmm. So there's certainly people out there that would do it a lot quicker. So yeah, probably a bit of a combination of being a bit of a perfectionist, but also with the investment that couples are making in my services, I kind of I do want to deliver not just like a really cohesive, polished kind of set, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And then someone was asking, I think they're jumping ahead. The next step is then obviously to bring this into Capture One and then start your raw conversion as well.
Indeed, yeah. So this is what we're doing is flagging the images that we're going to bring into Capture One. And like I said earlier, the reason for that is there's just, as a wedding photographer, there is just so many images that we tend to take that to try and make this process as streamlined as possible. It's a good thing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think I'm nearly through.
You continue. David was asking, no AI for now in Capture One, but maybe one day. Maybe, who knows? I mean, AI is kind of somewhat of a buzzword, not just in photography, but in everything, really. Self-driving cars, something else to mention. So any kind of way to assist a customer makes a lot of sense. Should Capture One have AI editing features? Maybe something's coming, actually, without saying too much. But there's also workflow features as well. So for me personally, and this is my personal opinion, I think AI would be great that can take away any kind of uninteresting side of the photographic process, like finding pictures that are out of focus as one example that we've seen, or finding duplicates or all that kind of stuff, which nobody enjoys doing that kind of thing. Of course, a lot of us enjoy the actual editing side of things. So for me personally, I think if AI can remove some workload, that's probably more beneficial than adding lightning bolts or something like that. But as I said, that's just a personal opinion. But I think it would be really interesting to hear from the consumer base what now that AI has settled a little bit, what kind of AI would you like to see in a product like Capture One? Where would it give you the most benefit? So, okay, that was my monologue.
This is a perfect. Yeah, no, and I think this piece of software is the perfect example to kind of reiterate your point, is that the AI isn't overbaked. It is strictly functional, and it doesn't go into bells and whistles territory. It's a real tool that is genuinely helpful. I've finished doing just a quick pass of the cull.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I've done is I've just selected only the images that narrative have flagged with some concerns.
Yeah.
So I want to do a pass and make sure that it hasn't flagged. Like I might want to keep some of these images. Now I have done a curated kind of dump of images to do this exercise, and if I, in retrospect, I should have included some ones that were more out of focus and things like that, because it would have proved this theory a lot better. But anyway, I can go through and review these, and this is a good example of one that I want to keep because it's a great little moment and a great expression, but It's flagged it because the eyes are partially closed. So I can go through and give that my 1 star and go through in some extra detail there, making sure that that I haven't missed anything. Some of these might keep. And anyway, you get the idea there. We just want to make sure we're not missing out on any goodies. That was a nice, funny. These ones can be kind of nice little fun outtakes for the couple. Okay, so that kind of shows that. So then what I'd be doing is I'd be just selecting now the images that I've flagged. As you can see,
which are 1 stars. Yep.
Yes, yeah, the 1 star kind of represents my flag, and we can see these ones where it has been flagged. I've kind of overridden that by selecting 1 star on top. So importantly, everyone's fear with this software is that the AI is going to delete images and things like that. No, it's just flagging them, and if with the right workflow and the right use of the software, it can really help quite a lot. So now is time to, I tend to move them. You could copy, but I'll move into if we go back to my client folder that I showed an example of before, my raw selects folder. So we'll do that. I'll click move, and that will do that in the background. And it said it's done. Then, thank goodness, David says, we're finally in Capture One. So we shall import some images. We'll obviously point it to the folder. There we go. And if I had a smaller selection of images, this is where we can use, we can go through the Capture One culling process, which, if it was a smaller selection of images, I most definitely would do that as well. Some quick points here. I like to copy the raws into the catalog and keep the catalog on my desktop even. There's some cloud-based backup for me when it's on the desktop. And if I don't have my hard drives with me and I want to be all metropolitan and edit in a cafe for a little while, I can do that without having, all these hard drives with me.
Got it.
I tend to, in terms of presets, I have, where am I? I tend to have 1 color preset that's kind of my old
base adjustments.
Yes, it's based on Maston Labs presets, which are available for Lightroom and Capture One. Very quickly, to give them a plug, what I like about them is that it is genuine film emulation. It's not they're actually looking at specific film stocks and trying to replicate them to a really fine degree. to the point where it's suitable for hybrid wedding shooters as well, where they can be shooting on actual film and then put them alongside their digital files with these presets applied, and it's going to be the best way to achieve that. So I'll smack on my color preset during the import, which I've done there, and I'm going to import them all, and away we go. A quick note here, just to optimize this whole live stream experience, I've turned down my exorbitant 5K resolution for my desktop so that we're not streaming 5K out to the world and breaking my machine and the internet. My kind of workspace is a little bit more condensed with some more panels closed than it usually would be.
Got it.
While these are kind of importing and generating previews, I'm a big fan in once you familiarize yourself with Capture One, to spend the time to creating a custom workspace that works for you. One of the things that can be overwhelming with any software or any, even, it could be anything, musical instruments or whatever, having all these settings that you don't use can be overwhelming and daunting, especially when you're just familiarizing yourself with the software. So to just kind of strip it all away and just focus on the adjustments that you want to make is very beneficial, I think, even for efficiency, but also, if you're new to Capture One as well, it'll just make it a little less daunting, I would say, because there is obviously just so many things that this software can do to our images. So to kind of make a workflow that works for you.
Yeah, and also if you're never going to shoot tethered, there's no point having a whole tool tab devoted to tethered capture. No, it's just taking up space in the interface, so get rid of it. And if we grabbed 10 people off the street and said, make the perfect default workspace, we'd get 10 completely different answers. So it really does make sense to spend a bit of time in sculpting, the interface to how you think it should look.
Yeah, absolutely. And on my secondary display, I would usually have this little guy, which is my style brushes and adjustments clipboard. Sometimes I'd have my styles there as well, just kind of hovering on the other screen. So for this demo, it'll kind of annoy me hovering over my thumbnails, but that's all good. So in terms of the edit, we've already got my preset applied. It's a kind of something kind of fairly specific to the Maston Labs workflow is they have these tone curve presets that kind of replicate the film scanning kind of school of thought. So I can see here just on the thumbnails, like these guys, for example, look pretty punchy, pretty contrasty for my taste straight off the bat. And that's where, rather than, of course, if you're using other, a different preset or used to working a different way, you could be looking at your contrast and your HDR kind of settings here and your tone curves and all these kind of things. Again, with wedding photography, we like efficiency because we need to edit a whole bunch of images. So that's where I'm a fan of these. So this modifies the preset, and we can do, for example, shadow soft, which, as you can see, just lifts those shadows a touch. We could also try if the highlights were clipping, or just kind of, you can just play and kind of see what vibe you like. All hard would make it more contrasty, all soft the opposite, and then there's some variations of the two. I might, for this, go shadow soft, I think. So what I can do is select all of the images in this sequence and click on shadow soft, which will give them kind of a similar look. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but some of the other things that in terms of using Capture One, I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. And it's annoying when you start, but if you have just a list printed out, which you can actually generate through the Capture One keyboard shortcuts menu, I believe. Yeah, list shortcuts.
You can list the shortcuts. Just pops it open into a web page, which you can print out and stick in various places around the house and memorize them daily. Yep.
Totally, like learning Spanish or something.
Yeah.
And you will eventually remember, and it will become second nature. And So for example, one of the first things I'll do here, is I might bring the exposure down just one stop. So I've mapped. I mean, not that the specifics matter, but I've got my keys D and F as my exposure adjustment. So if I tap D, it's bringing exposure down, yada yada yada. So I've just brought down that -1. But one of the things I would do to an image like this is the vignetting. Now I'll open my vignetting tab, which will probably close something else. No, it didn't. You can see here when it catches up to me. My plus and minus keys will adjust that, and I find that we were talking about this yesterday, David. This post crop vignetting is lovely in Capture One. It's got the way that it blends is very subtle. Like that's one stop of vignetting there where you really can't see it. If I turn that off by holding Option and clicking on that, I can just temporarily see what it would be like without it. You can see it's quite a big difference, and it leads the eye into the subject a little bit. I might not, because I'm going to do one other thing, I might not go as far as that. I might go 7. I'm going to use a shortcut to create a new layer, and just so we can see it, I'm going to open my Layers tab. So I'm just doing a shortcut there to do that. Now I'm going to hit a shortcut for my brush, and I'm going to do Control-Option-Drag, which is probably only, I think you told me about this on YouTube about a year ago in one of your demos, David. Thank goodness there's a really efficient brush size adjustment now by holding down Control-Option, dragging.
Yep, dragging with the mouse if anyone's unsure. So it's like hold down, where's my fingers, 2 keys, Control-Option, drag with the mouse, and then you can change the size of the brush nice and quickly.
Yep. Now, I'm all for efficiency. I want beautiful photos, and I'll spend the time to get them beautifully edited, but I also want to do it efficiently. And so with the Control-Option thing, you can change your hardness. Now, something that some people probably get very angry at me about on the internet, but I tend to always keep it fully feathered. So you can see that as you adjust it, the outer circle becomes smaller and larger, the blending area. I find if I keep it at 0 and click, because I'm doing fairly subtle adjustments, you can see how it blends in. I'm hitting M, which is my shortcut to show the mask. You can see that it's kind of fairly forgiving. Now I can go through if I want to and start erasing it, but it actually sometimes can do more harm than good because it will make it more obvious where my adjustment has occurred. So what I would do with this, I would do my shortcut to invert the mask, which is something, Command I.
Yep.
And then I'm going to turn the mask off now because you get an idea of what I've done there. And I'm just going to hit my exposure, maybe 3, -3. I kind of have some magic numbers that I always tend to like using. We've all got our weird quirks there. As I've done that little mask, now I kind of want to go back down, and I've just undone the adjustment I did earlier. We're bringing the exposure down a touch. I might also want to crop in a little bit and just help her eyeline a touch there.
So your goal when you're editing is to almost be hands off the mouse or trackpad, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've got my trackpad here, and I tend to be just using it as a for my brushes. Yeah, I'm really using the keyboard as much as possible. And I don't use a tablet or a Wacom, but I probably would benefit from that. But I've gone to use it, and I just ended up, it's just not what I'm used to, I suppose.
There's definitely a conversion period for tablet use.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
But you'll hate it for a week, and then you'll be into it. You just have to get through cold turkey with it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to create another. I'll need to fly through some much quicker edits, but another thing is these style brushes, which again is a relatively new feature.
Yep.
I've made my own called Eyes, and it just pops the eyes to a pleasing kind of degree. I'm going to hit M again. I'm a lazy masker, so I'm going to just kind of, if I turn that on, hopefully it'll come on in a sec. I think it's just system bogging down a bit here. There we go, got there in the end. You can see by having that, the kind of the feathering, if you like, up quite high, it allows you to be quite lazy.
Yes.
And when I say lazy, just efficient, and it's forgiving.
Yeah, I
I
think
might
that
want to just
when people try and mask sometimes, or for the first time, your natural inclination is to try and be super accurate. So you look at, in this example, the iris and think, oh, I need to absolutely get bang on to that iris. But 9 times out of 10, that's not really the case. And by being super accurate can sometimes make it more obvious that you've masked. So feathering and low flow, low opacity, all that kind of stuff is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And so I'm just toggling off and on the eyes. I really like that in the style brush, it stores the size of your brush. So obviously with eyes, it's always going to be a small brush size. And then when I change to another style brush, it will recall whatever size you had there. But yeah, we can see there the masking, full feathering. It's pretty lazy. You can even see I'm in a sense missing a bit at the top of her right eye. It really doesn't matter, and it kind of passes a bit of a catch-light thing anyway.
Exactly.
So that could be maybe verging on kind of a bit artificial for my taste in this particular shot, because the light was really hitting her eyes quite nicely. But anyway, that kind of thing. What I did while you were talking is I just did a quick gradient and hid that in her hair. There's kind of a natural gradient there in the hair, so just to bring down that highlight, I can even kind of overdo it, just to kind of prove the point, that kind of vibe. If I spent some more time on this, I might bring down those highlights with another adjustment, but for the sake of moving on, that kind of gives you an idea there. There's a quick before and after, which is another new feature, which I'm enjoying. But having said that, I tend to more be interested in going through and toggling layers on and off.
Which you also set a shortcut for as well. I remember you saying backslash turns your layer on and off. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is way more efficient than mousing up to the layer to turn it on and off. So I need to get into the habit of doing that as well.
Indeed, yes. Something that I set another shortcut for is clone variant. So I just hit my F3, which just does a complete replication of the same file, and then I might slap over a little, a nice little black and white, and I can just kind of hover over and just have a few different options up my sleeve, depending what tickles my fancy. And I might just soften that in the shadows a bit. And because of the subtle variations between presets, I might just bump that down a little bit exposure-wise.
Using your shortcut key once again. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think just for the sake of time, what I'd usually do is I would do, I'll do it just for this set. I would do a one press copy and paste, if that makes sense. So I've got my primary image selected here, holding down shift. I'm selecting the rest of the images. And then I want to check on my adjustments clipboard, I've got the right settings for what I'm about to do, which is auto select except composition.
Yeah.
So it's going to select everything that I've changed, except the composition to do this, which is, I've got a strange shortcut, which I think is Shift Command V. No, what is it?
It's a problem if you forget your own shortcuts, Eric.
I know. I think it's the pressure, but it would do a copy and paste in one click.
Yeah.
Because it's funny though. It kind of achieves it in another way though, because by hitting copy and not pasting it straight away, I can go through and untick my layers.
Right. Because the layers aren't like the eye adjustment wouldn't necessarily be applicable. Yeah.
Exactly. So I can unselect either all of them or some of them. Maybe she's in a similar spot. So I think that first layer, which was just putting a bit of focus on her, will do that. Yep. Then we'll hit apply. and you can see those tick up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads to another thing. It looks like from these thumbnails, I've adjusted my exposure since this first frame.
Mm-hmm.
Something I really love is doing adjustments just using the grid view. So I'm not looking at this image right now. I'm looking at these and going, oh, I'm going to bump all these up like, a third of a stop to kind of get them looking like that. Then if I was to go through and do it properly, I would then go through and do some local adjustments to those. I might be able to copy and paste some, not others, etc. Another great shortcut example is by default, I have my lens corrections on full. As you can see here, so full distortion correction, full light fall off correction. Because I do tend to like, lines and symmetry and that kind of perfection that wouldn't otherwise be there. It was a wide angle lens. But I've got some nice Keystone shortcuts. Love a bit of Keystone, and I tend to eyeball it rather than using the tool that pops up. For this particular painting, the way that it's slanting, I probably would actually need to open the tool and do the full Keystone, but I've got some shortcuts which will just kind of Keystone it left and right and up and down, which I find I use quite a bit. I guess I've kind of done that kind of image. Let me skip ahead to maybe a nice portrait. This kind of jogs my memory on another thing. The beauty of mapping the keyboard is two different shortcuts. So if I tap my exposure shortcut, I happen to have mapped it to F, so I can tap it. But with the new speed edit function, I can hold down F, which I've also set to be exposure, and drag up and down. So it's kind of two different features that I've kind of overlapped, if you like, so I can make more of a strong adjustment quickly. Yeah, and then anyone, I can go through and then.
Sorry to interrupt, Eric. Just if if anyone's watching is unaware of speed edit, it's basically coupling the keyboard to a slider, if you like. So typically, what Eric does is tap a key to go up and down by 0.1 of a stop, isn't it, Eric? I think it's in a tenth of a stop, a single press. But in Capture 121, we added speed edit, which means that you can map certain keys. There's a default set, but you can change it. So on the same key, Eric has, when you hold that key down, then your entire trackpad or Wacom tablet or mouse then becomes the slider. So just by dragging the mouse left or right, you're then changing the exposure in this case, but it could be exposure, contrast, white balance, and so on. And the nice thing is, like the shortcut of just tapping F to go up exposure and down exposure, speed edit also works on a batch of images. So if you want to suddenly give everything a one-stop bump, then you can do a speed edit switch on everything. So it's super nice for wedding workflow.
Absolutely. So probably a bit overcooked there, but again, just an example of just by not getting too bogged down in really fine brushing. You know, this is an example of I just needed to balance the exposure on their faces. I just needed to bring the bride's face up a third of a stop, and then I just did a bit of a kind of adding a bit more of a vignette just to bring the focus in on the couple as well as the actual vignette. So it's quite, I've got it quite high on this image just to kind of as an example, but to me, to my eye, you can't really see the couple pop, but because you're using that low flow, you're not really seeing you know, any kind of errors or anything obvious where it's been overcooked.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's kind of the beauty, because you could make the mistake of going, oh, I want to brighten up the couple and go through and really trace it out, and it'll obviously take a lot more time, and I it will look obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, quite like this is because I've got the lens correction on and I'm using an archaic tilt shift. That's why it looks really strange at the moment. So I'll go over to being something that I don't use as often. I've got it in another tab, and I just turn off those default numbers. And using that speed edit function to bring this guy back to life, which was looking pretty dark with the preset applied, and my error of judgment in the moment, probably getting a bit excited about having a great couple in a great location with some nice light leaking through.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It looks lit, actually. It looks like you got a flash hanging in the tree somewhere.
Yeah, well, I did that later actually, but I don't think I'd included those in that. But no, Mother Nature did that for me. Oh, another shortcut, comma and full stop, is the trusty rotation. I use this heat.
Okay. Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Just to jog by 0.1 of a degree or something. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Just those little fine tunes that you can do quickly. And I'd just be using Control C to select my crop tool. Obviously, these are just specific to me. It's based from how I originally started editing in another piece of software, and they're my own quirky reasons. But the point is, choose some shortcuts that are suitable to you.
Yeah.
Write them, print them out, have them in front of you, and just get used to them.
Just thinking of the time, Eric, because I know there's a couple of other steps in your workflow as well, and we don't want to miss out on those.
Sure thing.
So I think the takeaways for editing is obviously efficiency, using the shortcuts to your advantage to do repetitive things. Don't get too bogged down with super accurate masking because it's not necessary. And yeah, applying a blanket style to get you 90% of the way there makes sense, and then the combination of those shortcuts with the layers then just allow you to do those quick refinements as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll just do this one last one then, and we'll move on.
Cool.
But I think in doing this variation of images, you can see that like I'm not doing anything particularly kind of earth-shattering, but there's just some common kind of rules in terms of how I go about brushing that means that I can get what I deem to be a pretty good edit fairly efficiently.
Definitely.
Things here, the shortcut for the tint slider, always as just a rule for me, I tend to err on the side of magenta than green. Green skin tones aren't very pleasing.
No.
So if in doubt, I go magenta. So and you'll start to see that with slightly different skin tones, they're wearing light outfits, so you can kind of get a good kind of white reference there. Also like pretty warm images as well, for some nice warm skin.
I'm just going to answer a question from Brian, actually, in the webinar room. Thanks, Brian. He was asking a question about Keystone, if we could use it more like the upright tool in Lightroom, and he was referencing there's a discussion going on in our forum at the moment about the Keystone tool. If you actually have a look at that forum post again, Brian, you'll see Alex, our product manager, made a response quite recently. He's actually interviewed a couple of people about their desires for the tool to make sure we get it absolutely spot on and don't leave any stones unturned. So if you haven't checked back on that forum thread recently, do so. But yes, you've definitely been heard. Brian also says, I've found the fastest way to edit is just to do one phase at a time. So he culls, crops, basic color correction, then styling and dodging in the final step. So I guess he's going through phases of the whole selection. Is there a way to pick a brush with dodging settings and move from one photo to the next and keep that brush active? With a style brush, no, you'd have to you'd have to move to the picture, pick the style brush, and then start working. But the style brush you can set up to exactly how you want to dodge and burn. So really, if you're using a shortcut key to advance to the next picture, you can have your style brush palette open. You could even have it as a floating tool, like the one just hiding behind me and Eric, like style brushes, as you can see. And you just pick that brush, it sets up the adjustment, the size of the brush settings like flow, and then you could dodge burn, move to the next picture, and so on. I'd say that would be the most efficient way to do it with style brushes. You can't apply a shortcut key to a style brush, but I agree that could be nice, and then that would save you a click, but you'd be able to move through it pretty quickly, and you can see the speed that Eric's beavering away at as we talk in the background.
All right, sounds like we should think about the next phase. So,
yep.
All right, so that's that. I've done on my black and white. I did just an extra adjustment then, so I might. This is I turn my auto select off.
Right.
I then select none.
Okay.
And then I go down to copy layers. Copy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, I wouldn't. I'd just do the last one. Well, probably clicked in the wrong spot there. Just that last one that I did there. I could do a copy and then an apply, just darkening the groom's forehead there.
Very nice.
So often, something I found early on is couples might often ask, "Oh, I love this black and white. Can we have it in color?" Or, "We love this color. Can we have it in black and white?" So very often I'll do that clone variant. So I'll get my color right and then duplicate it and do the black and white. If I'm confident, then I'll just do the black and white on top of my color, and that will be that. But if in doubt, if it's a great shot, then I might do both. Like this, for example, I quite like this shot, and would give them both. And also in album design, it can be add some flexibility there.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a ton of unedited images here, but let's pretend that they're all beautifully edited after a day of staring at the screen and things. And then we start to think about the next phase. Now, this is where we get into, this is where we upset people on the internet, I think.
Right.
What I like to do is, the way that Capture One is my raw processor.
Got it.
So at this point, I have finished editing my raw photos. It's now, we love Capture One, but now it's time to say goodbye. And so what I would do is what I do is export what I call my masters. So I importantly don't apply any sharpening, which will be it will be here somewhere.
Oh, yeah, just down a bit. Yeah, and well, really, the point of the output sharpening in this dialogue is if you're resizing, if you're going smaller or bigger, and you're going max size TIFF, so it wouldn't be applicable at this point.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And in the ideal world, you'd do 16-bit TIFFs. I haven't found there's a need for that.
Probably not.
For this workflow. But yeah, so these are my masters. I have chosen, I'll make sure that I've got the folder selected here. So this is my client folder, and I've got my third folder here, 3_masters. This is where I dump all my master images that I've exported from Capture One. Mm-hmm. Now, once these images have exported, I close Capture One and I'll never open it again for these couples images. Mm-hmm. From this point on, my home base is the dreaded bridge. I'm going to just close narrative select. Yeah, I'm going to close narrative select because we're done with that, and it might just help with system resources a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm all for booing bridge, but it's good for this thing. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job, and for this, it serves me well. These are going to just kind of slowly pop up as we export. And
I've got a question for you as well whilst we're exporting.
Sure. Sounds good.
Brian says, great presentation, Eric. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
I think you did do it. It was just so quick you might have missed it. Do you ever do any spot removals or similar detail edits, or is that too time intensive? I know you do some in Capture One, and you kind of divide it up depending on the task between Capture One and Photoshop, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the viewers earlier mentioned kind of doing different passes, focusing on different things, and I actually do adopt a similar mentality. Now, this first image here, I didn't actually edit this, so this is just kind of not one of the images that I edited.
Yeah.
Now, for this particular bit of flair, for while he's having a shave, because it's so obvious, I would have got rid of that in Capture One.
Yeah.
But the beauty of this particular workflow, which I'm kind of, I guess, just about to dive into now, is that there is a golden opportunity to be doing some more Photoshop specific things.
Sure.
Whether it's using the Smart Healing brush, which is smart and it is quick, and there could be, for a particular hero shot, I might do field separation, kind of retouching. Because I'm thinking differently now that the images are here, I might see certain things that I want to change or fix up in Photoshop or enhance. There's plugins in Photoshop that might be, just a bit of special sauce that you might want to throw into the mix, which I rather do from here rather than re-import the image back into Capture One. Like I say,
and have to
I don't
export
need
again.
more processor anymore. Yeah, so
yeah, and we all miss things as well. You might then see a shot that you thought, I wish I'd done X, Y. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'd be looking to do here is a number of things. So I'm in a very different frame of mind now that I'm looking at, it could be like 600 images after I've kind of had my cup of tea, come back and check these out. In Bridge, there's a, what do they call it? They call it review mode. I'll bring this up because I do quite like it actually. It's quite speedy, and it's this kind of selection kind of
carousel,
process.
I guess.
Yeah. So this image here, let's say I did edit this properly, and it annoys me looking at this because I did a lovely edit on the original, but I would flag that with. I'll explain my color system and then it'll make sense. So yellow, I mark as, Eric, you need to do something to this image in Photoshop. So that's what that is. And then I might go, there might be some blemishes on that shot that I might want to have a look at. And then, so I'll mark that as yellow, like I did there. I might even do both, so the color in black and white. Then I know I love these shots of her laughing. That strand of hair left of her eye, that's something that I wouldn't have actually got to in Capture One, and I'd be looking to do that now.
Yeah.
Why? Just because I am familiar with Photoshop, I know I can do it quickly, and it's quite good at it. So I'd kind of flag that for Photoshop. But also, I'd be going through and doing what I call my story selection, which sounds very arty-farty. One of the first things that I'll do is put together a slideshow. So it's one of the first things the couple will see, if not the first thing the couple will see.
Right.
So I'll be going through and selecting within the hundreds of images a core selection that can be thrown together, sequenced together, and piece together a nice picture of the day, the story of the day. And that's what these red flags are. So I'll go through and go, right, okay, well, we've got those retouching ones. If I hit escape and then open this review mode again, it will load up a bit more of the images. So I'll hit that again. Or let's not, and I can just do this in grid mode and go, oh, there's a nice moment of him cheesy grin with her fixing up his bow tie. There's a nice expression from her there. And I'm keen for a few more to pop up. But so what I can do while these are ticking away, I'll kind of demonstrate something with these yellow flags. And any geeks out there, get your pen and paper ready for this one.
Right.
I now have a bunch of images that I want to edit in Photoshop. So these are my yellow flags. So I'm going to go across to these and here they are, the images that I wish to edit in Photoshop. I'm going to select them, and I'm going to use the most simple yet glorious Photoshop plugin ever to exist, which is named Mike D's Workflow. Thank you, Mike D, whoever you are.
Whoever
I know Mike
you are,
D from the
yeah.
BC. But I think chances are he's not one of the Beastie Boys. So I'm going to click auto load these files. It's going to open Photoshop, and a dialog box will come up, and it's basically just a few options. What are you doing with these images? Well, I want to keep them as TIFF. The lossless compression I found to be fine to use. Then we hit save and close, and we've just got a blank screen. So this is where you assign a shortcut to open the image in the queue, which it's doing now.
So that's
I can't wait for my new
queued up
MacBook
queued up those yellow flagged shots. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, whoops! I just accidentally clicked. It's a bit slow, like we were talking about yesterday, David. Bring on the new MacBook Pros that are getting shipped out as we speak.
Yep, it's
okay.
It's
so
a massive leap.
Yeah, so excited, and obviously awesome to have that native support by Capture One. So let's say I'll just do a quick spot removal on that guy. The Smart Healing Brush tool you can be so flippant with, and it does a pretty great job. I'm doing a lot with my machine right now, and it's a little bit unhappy, but let's just wait a second. So that's the adjustment. Now this is the cool thing. So I've got this in the background, this imaginary image queue. And if I hit my shortcut key, which I happen to have as F9, it will flatten and save and close this image and open the next one. Now, anyone that does anything like this will know how annoying all those dialog boxes are that pop up. Save, what quality slider is, all these things, and it saves a lot of time, and really, really, it just, I love the efficiency of it.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant bump in efficiency, actually, that you can just, whiz your way through those quick edits in Photoshop as well.
Yes, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it. You would think that Photoshop itself would be across that, and they probably are. But just doing a bit of spot removal here. It's an interesting territory to discuss. My two bob on it, for what it's worth, is if it's a blemish, I would tend to do them a favor to get rid of it because it's temporary. Any kind of permanent kind of birthmarks and beauty spots and things like that, I'll leave in. And on occasion, I might have a request from one of the bride or the groom or whoever, the couple, that they might be particularly self-conscious about something. And, I've got their back. If there's something they don't want to be there, I'd be happy to do that. But my default is just those kind of blemishes and things like that. I also love low-key light or directional light, which can really accentuate, the texture of the skin. So it, these kind of little spots here you might not usually notice. It's more kind of the use of light and things.
Exactly.
So I'm just, as you can see here, I'm quickly toggling through. I've still got Capture One exporting. I've got a gazillion programs open, but I can kind of go through and still be, getting through these images relatively quickly.
Yeah.
You could, of course, clone stamp this guy, but I have a feeling that the good old Smart Healing Brush tool will kind of do a pretty good job of this, and it'll do it quickly too. As it's sitting there and not doing it quickly. Yeah, there you go. See, that's
pretty quick.
Acceptable. Yeah. That stranded hair, Gonski. And it's those little things that can make all the difference. Blemishes near the edge of frame as well. Can help there. There is probably not a shot like this. There could be a base level action of skin softening that I might do, but probably be more like portraits where I'd go as far as doing a field separation retouching, which is a discussion for another day, because obviously it's a fairly complex retouching process.
So that's
So I've
triggered
worked through
the end of your queue, I guess. Yep.
Exactly. So for the most simple plugin, I absolutely adore it for this kind of workflow. There could be other reasons that I might want to retouch, open images in Photoshop. Sometimes, for an image like this, for example, I might want to add some black space, something like that. So there might be things that you can't easily do in Capture One, because it's not really what it's designed to do.
That's completely fair.
So those kind of things, I might do that. Those kind of adjustments as well. So let's say that I've finished my. I want to do a few more selections here. Let me just quickly select a few more. I think I did a rough edit on these. We'll keep that black and white, and even though I didn't edit that, we'll keep that. That's already selected, so I'll just do some red flags. So, like I said earlier, I'd call this my story selection. These yellow flags here, we've finished retouching them now, so I can kind of revisit their flag status, if you like. I love this smiley shot. That's definitely one of my story selections now that I've retouched it. So that's over to a red flag. For a point of difference, a more quiet shot, and to contrast the color, maybe I'll keep the black and white. That I'll just unflag the yellow. That shaving shot might be a nice, getting ready shot to kind of establish that part of the day. So now I've got 0 yellow flags because I've done my pass in Photoshop and those kind of retouching, and I've got these my red flags, which is, like I said, I kind of call my story selection. From here, remembering that these are unsharpened full res TIFFs, I can bend them and resize them and sharpen them for whatever purpose I require. So I would select them. I'd go to image processor. Like I said, the first thing I would do is a slideshow if I haven't done previews. This dialog box is just opening up. I might even see if Capture One will happily close in the background just to give me some resources there. And we'll not back that up for now.
You're going to look forward to the new laptop, yeah?
Oh yeah, big time. Oh, come on. Well, this wheel is spinning a bit more than I would like right now. Let's see what we got here. Well, while I sort this out, it's taking a bit longer than I would like. I'm going to force quit this.
I'm glad it was Bridge that needed a force quit and not Capture One. So
yes, I think it. Yes, exactly. Yes. So what I'll kind of demonstrate in a sec is that, so let's say we've run, what I'm about to do is run an action, which I've already built in Photoshop to resize. Let's get back here. There it is. It's going to just because I've opened it, probably be a little slow here. I'm going to run an action that's going to resize it to 4K resolution for the 4K slideshows that I do. That's not the right folder. Getting there. Oh, actually, I was smart, and before this, I put that as in my favorites, which I'm now. That's fine. Okay. Let's try this again. I'll just wait patiently this time and not click anything.
While you're waiting, there was a question from Vinicius. Sorry if hopefully I've said your name correctly. Does Capture One hold highlights better, do you feel, or is it just my impression? You're better to answer that than me, as you have a comparison.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, does the Vinicius he feels that Capture One holds highlights better, I guess, compared to Lightroom. What's your feeling on that, having used both?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've used Lightroom at all, to be honest. But I found the raw processing before you apply a preset. When I first jumped across, where you could do A/B comparisons, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't having a bit of an issue here. I found it just a better raw processor in every sense, down to well, I guess skin tones are king, aren't they? Particularly with fashion, portrait, weddings. Skin tones appeared more kind of natural and uh, just better to my eye.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that the retaining highlights and shadow detail as well. I found it overall just a much better raw processing engine. Another thing that I really like is the new what are they called, David? The pro the new camera profiles.
Oh, pro standard profiles. Yeah. So we re-engineered a lot
Yeah.
of the profiles to actually do that, support better skin tones, better transitions from, so shadow to highlight. So if you think of a blue sky, if we have a transition from dark blue to light blue, then that's going to hold that transition much better. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm running two Photoshop versions.
Is Bridge giving you a hard time?
Well, what I'm trying to do is from Bridge run my image processor, and it's just not happy. And of course, I tested it before, and it's always the way.
Always the way. but that was more
Yes.
like one of the final steps in the workflow was to use the image processor to then spit out your various different formats for your slideshow and so on and so forth, as I understand.
Exactly. So I guess, and really, I mean, I don't need to demonstrate it as such anyway. So let me just explain looking in this mode. So what I was hoping to do then is to run an action which I've already created in Photoshop to resize, sharpen, convert to sRGB, because I export Adobe RGB for the larger color gamut, which is more suitable for print. So I would make those conversions in the action and then spit it into my slideshow folder back here, this guy here. Obviously, you could do that from Capture One, but this is where the kind of some wedding photography specific stuff comes in, because you're managing a whole bunch of images, let's say 500 or something like that, or more. By having this flag system and having it in Bridge, you can run the action to create a set of images that you need. So, for example, let's say I've done my slideshow. Now I want, and I've done. I've put all of the images in the couple's online gallery by running a different action to print optimize images. One of the things we might want to do when it's all done and dusted is to do a wedding blog submission or a magazine submission. So rather than needing to go back to your raw processing software, you can just come back to Bridge. You can review your selection. So I've got my red flags as what I consider the core images, but then there could be some styling shots where we want to give a wedding blog more of those kind of options, or a different selection. So I might go through and add a different colored flag, pretending that these are styling shots. Then from there, I can go through and go, all right, well, I'm going to select those, which are my core selection. The few extras that I want to give for a wedding blog submission, select all. And if your Photoshop's working, you can run an action that will resize them and have a set of actions depending on what size. Often wedding blogs might have their own quirky little size, and they're always different from one to the next. So you can have a set of actions to resize those. So by having this as like the home base for your images, I have found to be incredibly beneficial. Same goes with albums and things like that. And if ever you need to alter your images in any way, rather than, let's say, you export images and then you do a bit of extra editing on some images you've resized for a wedding submission, by editing your masters instead, you're not double handling. Once you have made those adjustments to your masters, whenever you run an action and resize a set of images from those, obviously all those changes will come through. So I find there's less kind of double handling with the editing. So yeah, I'm trying to think if I go back to my folder. So like we'd see the images come up in the slideshow. I'd run the Adobe RGB for print ready files, the sRGB full collection for their online gallery, a full set of all the images for screen res, which I usually do 2048 pixels, just as a bit of an all-rounder full set. That's more of a working folder for their album, so including, from the design software. So again, this is kind of using Bridge and popping them into these files. There's folders. There's a lovely little efficiency that can occur there.
Nice. Well, we've got a comment from Brian. He's given you a little slap.
Excellent. I love it. It was going to happen.
Yeah. And in addition, regarding export, if you keep the workflow in Capture One, you can make export profiles in C1 and expect your photos in multiple sizes and qualities. The nice thing is that you can batch export all of your formats overnight without any user interaction. So yeah, there is that possibility. But as I said, familiarity is often where it's at, having these set workflows. For me, if we can play nice with other applications, that's also important. But yeah, that's also, Brian's entirely right. You can also set up some different exports to punch out this kind of stuff too. And now that Bridge actually died a little bit, that's something we can look at.
Yes, right.
You and I together, yeah.
No, so the reason that doesn't work for me is the amount of images that I need to edit in Photoshop, and to re-import those into Capture One. There's a duplication of images and a bit of a lack of efficiency in just quickly browsing thumbnails and reviewing them as you go as well. Because it might, the wedding submissions, for example, you might do a month after you've finished working on the images. So the way that I look at it is I no longer need a raw processor. Once I export those masters, that's then my home base.
Yeah.
And I do not need a raw processor anymore. But of course, there's many ways to skin a cat, and I know that's certainly the workflow that Capture One would want you to use. But yeah, just being a wedding photographer and kind of needing these efficiencies, and also in how I like to work in Photoshop as well as part of my workflow, this has definitely been the best way for me. But by all means, knock yourself out. And Capture One is a wonderful thing as well when you see how my Photoshop works tonight.
Yeah. Excellent. Right, I'm just going to find a last couple of questions. It was just another comment saying, back to the question about highlights. Brian was saying that he prefers the highlight recovery, prefers the way Capture One does contrast, likes the noise reduction, color profiles, and so on and so forth. So I think that whole image processing ecosystem is important. So question we had on YouTube. Going back to the AI, Rob was saying skin smoothing would be incredible, full body, not limited to headshots, but accurate within a mask, targeting skin tones only would be a nice time saver, even if it's only a start point. Yeah, I think that definitely could be interesting. Richard says the culling and Capture One 21 is really good these days in terms of speed and efficiency at culling. The AI aspect of narrative select though is quite innovative. I wouldn't mind seeing that implemented in Capture One. So thanks for your comment, Richard. Let's see. Anze says, Capture One does better on rendering than Lightroom. Great job, guys, as well as this was live. Yeah, sorry for our shaky start with technology, but we got there. So
we both we're like one for one with technical
exactly.
difficulties.
Yeah,
So
you had to one up me. Yeah. Absolutely.
A brief comment about AI is, we mentioned earlier about let me change this back across so I can see your beautiful face.
Yeah.
In terms of usable AI,
Mm-hmm.
there's the AI where you can turn summer into winter and put mountains where there's not mountains. I think a really usable part of AI, which I'd love to see in software like Capture One, is the idea of AI masking. So
Yeah.
for the software to be able to identify a human face, to identify eyes and things like that, to just have a slider for, you know, popping the eyes and not actually having to do any brushes and things. That is around in various forms now, but not in the way that we'd like to see it. And yeah, I think eventually it's inevitable that that will be more of a thing in the future.
Yeah, I think so, with computational photography as well, becoming more experimental. It's going to be interesting. The next 10 years are definitely going to be interesting, especially with the bump in processing power that we see, you know, with the new Apple M1 side of things. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes and how Intel responds. You know, what have they got up their sleeve? Because I'm sure they're not sleeping either. But you know, to compact all that processing power, you know, into a laptop like what I'm talking to you now, and I have my MacBook Pro 16-inch, like from 2019, I think. But behind it is a external GPU, so another graphics card in a box, which is flipping massive and takes up a lot of space on the desk. And if my little M1 13-inch MacBook Pro pretty much matches that, it's not far off. In a, you know, a compact case, and then thinking what the 16-inch could do with an M1 Max, and then maybe 5 years from now, a lot of the time the hindrance on perhaps some AI technology is really how long it's going to take. Because yes, we could probably say to you now, sure, Eric, we can give you the ability to auto detect eyes, mouth, lips, hair, and do all kinds of stuff, but you've got to wait 5 minutes per picture. I mean, that's just not feasible. But if with this, you know, increase in processing power, whether that's Mac or PC or whatever, doesn't matter. The more density we get on processing, it opens the way for doing cool stuff in software. So that's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Big
Cool.
time.
Well, I think, unfortunately, we are out of time. We overran a little bit. But the audience is here, so we thank everyone for sticking with us at the start while we just fixed our little technical hiccup. And to follow Eric, let's just put up Eric's. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, Eric. You're not Zoe. You're Eric. There we go. So you're Eric at Eric Ronald Photo, and you can find details to your website there and everything else as well, I'm sure. So
yeah, always love a chat. So if anyone's out there listening, you do these things and we just have this conversation and you have no idea who's out there that might have got something out of it, found it beneficial in some way. So please, get in touch, send us a message. That'd be awesome.
excellent. All right. And Doug says great session, thank you guys. Vinicius says great job guys, thank you. So yeah, thanks for all the love out there, and cheers, Eric. Thanks for sticking with us.
The beauty of this time zone is that, unlike you, it's wine time.
Nice. I've just got boring water time, but hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Particularly in
the UK. Quite. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you again soon. If you want, the next live session is next Tuesday, where we're just doing a community edit, and then we've got new stuff coming, of course, with Capture One 22, so we're not far off of that either. So take care, everyone. Thanks again, Eric.
And thanks, David. Soon. Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye now.
Yeah. Oh, not anymore.